Every year, scientists release this climate report card for Europe from Copernicus, the EU's climate monitoring program. It's one of the most trusted sources we have for tracking how fast things are changing. And this year's report is yet another wake-up call.
Yeah, the data shows every corner of the continent felt the effects of climate change. Sea surface temperatures hit all-time highs. Southeastern Europe endured its longest heat wave on record, and glacial regions suffered their worst ice loss ever recorded.
European flooding also reached its widest extent since 2013, affecting over 400,000 people and claiming at least 335 lives. We spoke to University of Pennsylvania climate scientist Michael Mann about what this report means for the world as a whole.
These reports remind us that the planet is continuing to warm up, and it will continue to warm up as long as we continue to burn fossil fuels and engage in activities that increase the concentration of carbon dioxide, this warming greenhouse gas in the atmosphere.
The overall picture is clear. Europe is warming fast, and the consequences are accelerating.
Yeah, impacts of climate change, like an increase in heavy rain events and flooding, they're also being seen right here in the U.S. Just a week ago, remember, devastating flooding hit western Kentucky, leaving the Buffalo Trace distillery completely underwater in a place where it stood for, let's say, 200 years.
The nonprofit First Street Foundation monitors climate risk impacts like flooding. Meteorologist Mike Bettis and Dr. Rick Knabb spoke to them about these increasing events.
Whether it be a residential property or a commercial property that's existed on the river for as long as Buffalo Trace has been on this river, they've dealt with floods before, and they have mitigated and they have adapted. One of the difficult things that we're seeing today, though, is that while we're not necessarily in some places seeing more rainfall occur across the entire year, we are seeing more rainfall in single events. So something like what we saw at the beginning of April, where we saw from Arkansas all the way up through Kentucky, these tremendous amounts of rainfall, unfortunately are becoming the norm. So even though the Buffalo Trace distillery has seen floods before, it's likely that they're going to see more floods more frequently moving into the future.
So, Jeremy, that event a couple weeks ago, overall, where do you think it ranks in terms of how bad they have had it before? And do you have some quantification of how much worse it could get in the coming decades?
Yeah, it just some of the numbers that I was looking at recently is that the river actually crested right around the historic maximum that is crested in the Frankfurt area in the past. So it's about as bad as we've seen it historically. One of the things that we're really seeing, though, in this part of the country and on up even into the Northeast and further north in the Midwest, is that extreme rainfall is the way in which climate change is manifesting itself in these regions of the country. And so we've actually, at First Street, have climate-corrected rainfall estimates from NOAA, from the historic record books, and what we find is what we used to call a 1 in 100-year storm around Louisville, Kentucky, is happening about every 9 years now. So we're seeing these events so much more frequently than we have in the past, and we need to adapt. We need to prepare ourselves for a future that is going to have more of these types of rainfall events.
So if the events are coming more frequently, that means the expense then comes more frequently to clean up from that. Is there a point in time where, for some, it might be more viable to leave and relocate rather than stay?
Yeah, it's a decision that homeowners have to make, commercial business owners have to make. At some point, you can clean up, you can adapt, you can continue, to create ways in which you can protect your property. But you do get to the point to where potentially the cost over time and really the way that we're trending, it could be relatively soon, becomes more cost than it's worth. In some cases, it does make sense to move and relocate either the residential property or the commercial properties. But again, it's really on a case-by-case basis. I mean, people need to understand their risk. They need to understand what the risk is likely to look like into the future and then make those decisions.